Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Miss Patricia Kirkman. PK, how are you?
Hanging in there by my fingernails.
Oh.
Getting old sucks. That's all there is to it.
Oh, my God, bless you.
I've been trying to work in my office, and we're getting ready to have some stuff done. And if I have to lift one more book, I'm going to.
They get heavier and heavier.
Oh, my God, yes. I got rid of 6 shelves, 5 bookcases wide.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, I'm just a little haggard at this point in time. But looking at what's going on today is the new moon.
Oh, yeah.
The most potential time to be saying your new moon wishes is today. So the new moon wishes, positive traits are being charitable, ethical, and spiritual. Negative traits, critical, impersonal, and overly emotional. I probably deal with all 6 of those one at a time. They're up in the air.
Yeah.
But the 9 year that we're in really is all about all or nothing. And June, which will be here in a couple of days, is all about our family and family issues. So use your new moon wishes to kind of balance out our lives, because everything's a little chaotic right now. It doesn't matter what you turn on, it's negative coming back at us, whether it's the news or even if it's a political aspect that you're pleased with, it's still coming back with the negative. So keep our fingers crossed, and let's hope that with the new month coming in, with June, it's all about family things, wanting things perfect. Let them make them perfectly nice and being good to one another. Just a thought.
I think I like that thought. That's a very good thought. Indeed. So tonight, we have a super genius with us. I'm going to call him a quantum genius. He is an amazing, amazing man. We've had him on the show several times before. It's always an exciting time. And his name is Dr. Richard Alan Miller. So some of you may recognize that name. And he has a long and extensive resume in the field of physics, metaphysics, and agriculture. Some of the highlights from his very rich and varied resume, from solid state physics to states of consciousness and much in between. Prodigious from an early age. 2 of Richard Miller's high school science projects were adapted by NASA, including one used in the Mariner 4 mission to determine the amount of water on the planet Mars. At age 16, he built a linear accelerator and hydrogen bubble chamber for a science fair project and was the first American to demonstrate particles going faster than the speed of light. He's been involved in research and projects, many at top secret level, that have formed the basis of several modern-day scientific inventions. Miller's research in the field of paranormal began as a graduate physicist working 11 years with Navy Intel. His work includes foundational papers on a holographic concept of reality, and embryonic holography, and work with microwaves and synthetic telepathy. He was used as Timothy Leary's experimental guinea pig to see what the effects of LSD were when taken by a Mensa level genius. Now, there's much more, but instead of reading about him, let's bring him on the show. Richard, Dr. Miller, how are you tonight? Welcome.
Yeah, I can't even bite anymore, like Monty Python would suggest.
Oh.
Dentistry's broken, and I could hum a few bars with your other lady there in terms of what's going on in the news today.
PK, yes.
I studied with Isabel Hickey, by the way, when I was at MIT.
Ah, you know everybody. Everybody who's anybody, even know my buddy, Dr. Puharich, who I miss. He was quite a guy. And again, very prolific at writing, much like you. You have many books out there. And you've had amazing experiences that we all want to hear about. So let's start, if you don't mind, Richard, with your experience at Groom Lake. You were called there and you met an extraterrestrial there. So can you tell us about that? It sounds so interesting.
So I worked paranormal phenomena. I wasn't working with aliens or alien artifacts. I have examined several alien artifacts, and why I discovered bioluminescence at Antarctica. That was a while back when I was the physicist in charge of figuring out how the light worked. And then electrophoresis. There was a piece of metal in the University of Chicago. They had it down in the vaults, and I fired a 50 caliber cannon at it, and it collapsed around the ordnance, and then slowly flowed back into its position again. And that was the birth or understanding of electrophoresis, memory in metal. And I've seen things that I have no explanation for. Today, even, I 50 years later, I don't have a clue how to approach it or how to isolate variables. The key with physics is to always have something be reproducible and repeatable. So in the process of doing all of that kind of thing, Krill, this entity at Groom Lake, wanted to meet me. And so I was brought out of my normal position and was shipped to Groom Lake for a moment. And I remember I was not briefed at all. I was going in cold. That's what they wanted, and to get my impressions on what would happen. And I went down 8 levels, and when the door opened, there was this large table with a bunch of top secret documents. Now, at that time, I had top secret clearance with 3 vault permits. That means I was like a 3 Days of the Condor. I was a reader. I could go into certain vaults without a need to know. And I just started grabbing documents, and I'm reading them as quickly as I can to, build some foundation when the door opened. When the door opened, there was this entity that was possibly 9 feet tall.
Tall.
9 feet tall, maybe 8.5. She was tall, thin. And appeared to have no clothing, but that I understand was some kind of a garment that covers them, different than like I do with layers and things like that. And I knew immediately. I wasn't afraid. I don't know why. I just felt a calming effect. And then I started hearing voices in my head. And I couldn't understand how she could communicate without audio. This was 1974. I mean, we're talking way back when aliens were not a big deal in Roswell. While Roswell had happened under Truman, I was working under Richard Nixon, the last of the people to do that. And why today, because of the experience, I'm not sure, but perhaps it was my future programming me. Wow. I mean, I don't know. I have lots more questions than I do answers. And what happened is once I understood that it was feminine, it felt feminine. That's, it wasn't different than male or female. There were no marks on the entity, but, it just felt feminine. And then I have no memory of what happened next. For 20 minutes, we just stood there. They filmed it. And they then spent the next 3 weeks trying to debrief me. And I came out not knowing what happened. I had no memory. And slowly over the years, certain pieces of what occurred drop at critical times when I'm about to do something important. The last one was that opened up to me. It's like the memory is there. you have the information, but you can't remember who the actor was. You know, the movie, but you can't. And then you can see his face, but you can't remember it was Peter Sellers. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, it's all clear, just like that. Oh, it's like all of a sudden the memory opens and you have that. And I have a bunch of different things that over the years have opened to me, and they're seemingly opening more now than before, because I don't know that this is true, but I may be one of the stewards or captains that does a get out of jail card for the end of days, which I did also in 74 about the magnetic pole shift. That's a topic we can talk about later. That topic, I went back 5 epochs, and there's no written records on each one. The Greek culture started 11,200 years ago. And beyond that, we have no written records of anything. We surmise. I had to use geology. And what I did is I went back and used geology back 5 epochs, and had 3 sigma error coefficient to it. That means a 99.9975% probability of the event happening. The wiggle room, of course, is 20 or 30 years, but even with that level of accuracy. But I know I don't know what I'm doing. And Krill.
Yeah, let's get back to Krill.
Yeah,
tell us more about
Krill. She one of the things that opened to me that led me to believe now that the singularity is already happening is that she said, quote, "If you were to choose an artifact to remember Earth by, what would it be? And if you chose the right one, you'd get to choose a star of your choice to complete your evolution. What would that artifact be?" For me, I chose a clamshell pulling out my whiskers, because that's how primitive Phillips and Remington and all the rest of these razors they market now. That's about as primitive as we can get, because you buy a brand new razor for $42, and then 1 year later you have to replace the blades, which is either $32, or you can buy a new razor for $42.
Right.
Well, you know, I know something else is going on here, and you know, we're not nearly as aware as we would think we were. I have had lucid dreaming experiences and actually experienced a number of different altered states where you can do things in those states you can't do with consciousness. And so man is only just now finding foot ground, and quote, "We've been here before." When we get to a certain level of evolution, like the Vermana or spaceflight or whatever, it seems like all of a sudden there's a catastrophe and we're back to the Stone Age again. And the thing that bothers me the most about that whole concept of a petri dish is that Homo neanderthalis was a more evolved species than Homo sapien. Had 3 rings in the DNA and could do things metaphorically that man can't even grok. A stranger in a strange land. I know that there's something else going on. And so my quest has always been, since I was out of the crib, to try to understand who I am uniquely. And one of the things that I've come to realize, truthfully, is that all our wars have been around religion, where we judge another, when in fact the teachings of Christ and others, Buddha and so on, were the only person you could change was yourself, judge yourself, because of the choices you make. And that's the multiverse. And all the choices where I was not on the show today are all happening right now. That's what made us God's favored. And they're contained in what's called the proton cloud, that space between when a proton is a particle and when it becomes a wave. And your choices determine how many universes are going on, and the limitation also, because of your option of choices.
So let me ask you a question again about Krill, because before off air, we were talking a little bit about it, and you got very emotional, which is understandable because here's.
I don't know what happened. That's the whole part of it.
So you had a 20-minute blackout, and then they tried to debrief you to find out what happened, and you really didn't remember anything.
6 weeks debriefing.
But it's interesting. So obviously there was something that happened that was impactful and that touched you to a great degree. But my question goes a little further too with this, because I want to know, why was this entity there? Did you ever find out? Did they ever tell you?
I don't know why Krill wanted to meet me. That's one of the many excuses I use for trying to think, maybe this is me trying to program myself. I don't know. But I can tell you, anything with a face, 2 arms, and 2 legs, including little green men from Mars, that's carbon-based. Which means our reticulin, our reptilian, our tall grays, Nordics, whatever, all this super menage that we have now of aliens, that's our future. And we're in stasis, some kind of a dream state that is observing this from, I don't know how to explain it. I don't have the words yet. That's why I'm writing a new field theory. And I'm going to use the math is important. I've decided to use the knot theory, which is taking 10 strings, string theory, adding an 11th string, which is like a super string. So it's super string theory that interconnects as a wormhole, and then tying little knots in them like a Boy Scout. Like you're in the kitchen and you decide, are you going to put butter on your toaster, or are you going to put jam on it, or are you going to do both? And all 3 happened in different universes. And so one of them I'm probably overweight, and another one I'm, as a metaphor. And all the different possibilities and the limitations are, it was only on butter, jam. I didn't think about chocolate or, that kind of.
Right. So there's all kinds of different experiences. Now, you talked about, excuse me, other vaults that you have inspected, other places underground, military places. So apparently we have quite a few of them. And a number of them contain other extraterrestrial entities.
I don't know about Dulce. What I do know is that Dulce will probably become uninhabitable with an event because of the nuclear power plants. And I know that part will happen. I have friends in Telluride that run some of those bunkers. I have them in Kentucky, up in Chihuahua, all over the United States. You can go from Maine all the way down to Florida without ever coming above ground. And we can today on the West Coast. I can go from Coos Bay all the way into the Trinities down in California without ever coming above ground. They're all interconnected now.
And what are they doing underground? What is this?
The correct answer is yes, all of the above. That means anything you could possibly imagine is not only true, it's even more than that. Do we have aliens in other bunkers? Yes. Do we, and more than that. Who knows? They might be. Well, okay. One of my friends is an astronaut that went to Antarctica a few years back. You remember when they quarantined the island? What happened there was when I went there in '74, I was a physicist in charge of figuring out how the light worked. We went in through Thule Island in a submarine and came up into this place, and there was a cavern that was over a mile high. And there was this Nazi base there that looked like it had been nuked, probably by Kennedy. It 19 slips. Further down was a Viking base from the 14th century. I've never seen in any history book. And further down was back in '74. There was no way we could go down. It was like a giant hole that went 100 miles straight down into the mantle, which in my physics says was plastique. It's hot and and everything's into a plastic form. And yet this astronaut I can't remember his name now. He told me that when they went down, they have the technology to go up and down 100 miles now, like with which we didn't in '74. Certain kinds of motors or engines that can go up and down, not sideways, and having to glide up. And when they got down there, something woke up.
Oh.
And what was it that woke up? I don't know. Probably Nephilim. I discovered Nephilim back in 1810. There was a news article out of Pennsylvania where a guy dug up this huge skull. It was huge. They had pictures of it in the newspaper, and it went to the Smithsonian. Where is it? Well, that was something that Nova wanted me to answer when I was doing some English radio. And I don't know, but at that very moment, a Baptist minister was chasing that Mormon guy. What was his name that started? Joseph Smith had started in Pennsylvania, had started a movement, and he was moving his clan out to Utah. And the Baptist minister dogged him to get his thing back, and his two sons ran the Smithsonian at that time. And I'm guessing that that skull is out in the Atlantic where they were trying to vet their father on a close encounter religion. Mormon religion is based on a close encounter. I don't know if you knew that or not, and that's the only way I could understand where that skull is missing.
Well, so when you were down in Antarctica and you were speaking to this astronaut, there were a lot of stories that came out of Antarctica a few years back. Fascinating about these large beings that were in stasis and that they were waking up, and it created quite.
Well, it might have been. Something happened 2 billion years ago when Mars was a garden planet, and the entities were carbon-based on there. We never made it to the surface. I took 12 NASA scientists. We were mostly underground, and they didn't have 4 fingers or a thumb. They had what we call a digit or three claw thing,
Right.
And something happened between Mars and the asteroid belt, and that's when Earth was colonized. And it might have been the Petri dish was moved. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a metaphor, where they're doing experiments. And there's a group of women today that are doing billet reading, which is a high accuracy, like Keith Milton Reinhardt did. And I'll explain billet reading in a minute, that have stated last year, something just turned the AI on Mars that's been controlling our solar system for 2 billion years. What would that imply?
Yeah.
It would imply, for example, we may not have a magnetic pole shift this time.
Mm-hmm.
It might imply something else altogether. I don't know what it means. When
So what are these?
Called me, they wanted to know. Okay, Dr. Miller, what would be a switch? And that was an easy one, because I watched astrology become astronomy. And then I watched how it morphed into the new direction of what's called cosmobiology. And I gave you that definition, the geometric relationship of celestial bodies on biological processes. And the one we know about that's really is the lunar sex cycle of the female by Janov out of Yugoslavia. When a woman moves on Earth, her ovulation cycle changes because of the engram. That's why I'm writing on the DNA as a resonant cavity oscillator with 2 Russians right now. And
what are these billet readings that you mentioned? You tell us about. What is that?
Well, the switch is pretty obvious. Imagine 2 celestial bodies. Your Earth, and right now 2 celestial bodies that are light years apart from each other just happened to move in the same direction to block Betelgeuse for 4 days in November. That's almost statistically impossible. That would have been my first choice for a variable to start trying to study what's going on. That's how I work my physics, because it's impossible, and yet it happened. And it turns out we're now discovering that moment was when Betelgeuse went supernova.
Well, I have a comment for you. There's actually a question and a comment by someone named Verax, and he said, or she said, billet reading is a form of mentalism or
Yeah.
psychic reading where the practitioner claims to receive information from sealed or hidden.
I'll give you a better one. Keith Milton Reinhardt came into my class at the University of Washington and did a billet reading on 102 of my students when I was teaching parapsychology there. And I used him as an example. And what I did for mine was I write on a piece of paper, prove to me you're not reading my mind. Stick it in my pocket. He doesn't know the question. And his comment to me is, quote, in my mother's bedroom is a hope chest at the front of her bed. And at the very bottom of that hope chest is a letter written 3 days before you were born.
Wow.
He did that to 102 different individuals as billet reading.
Okay.
Now,
I've never heard of that. PK, have you heard of that?
No, I'm amazed. I'm just amazed.
Foundation out of Seattle, Washington. The Aquarium Foundation, Keith Milton Reinhardt.
I want to go back, before we go to that topic, I want to go back to Antarctica because there was an astronaut who went down there. Who was it? Was it Edgar Mitchell? I don't know.
I couldn't think his name.
He had a heart attack. He had a heart attack. And then he started screaming that we were all in danger from some kind of evil. And what in the world was going on there with him?
They quarantined the island because they didn't know.
Okay. They didn't know why
he was quarantined. They didn't know what was happening. And something woke up. I'm guessing. I don't know this because I wasn't part of that. I'm guessing it was Nephilim. That's why I brought it up. They were here first. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where they came from, was Mars. I don't know. Or they were the first experiment of Mars, like we had Ant-Man.
Right.
We had Ant-Man. We had a bunch of different experiments with hive consciousness before we had Adam and Eve, probably. I don't know.
The Nephilim, I mean, you're talking about giants, right? Giants with godlike abilities.
Right. They had low gravity, whatever. Different gravity.
Okay, well,
I don't know what actually happened other than the bad news is we may, in this conscious state, never really know. It's like you can't get there from here. Simon said you can go halfway to the door. You think you're getting close, but no cigar. You just want to get there. And then there's a new concept.
We are in the twilight zone. Well, here's a question for you. This is from Verax, and I think it's a decent question. So thank you for sending this in. So to you, Richard, based on your experience in both military-grade research and metaphysics, how do you see human consciousness evolving in relation to quantum technologies or non-local awareness?
Well, quantum technology is based on the measurements of light, of time and space. And those are constructs, they're not real. And holographic systems are also not real because they're based on fractal mathematics, which is Mandelbrot, Julier, May generators, which are unique. And when you go from an analog to a digital system, you create an uncertainty principle. The more you know about one thing, the less you know about the other. That's the situation problem that we have in terms of you can't get there from here. Constructs aren't real. They're the way we organize our mental image of something, and there's something more going on. It isn't that space is real. What is space? I created a wormhole where I was able to, it's like a Stargate. It's a geometry that you envision in your mind's eye, and then taking a lot of time to learn how to mentally control that, having it do some things. I'll upload to you after this on an email to you. I will upload a geometry that's moving, suggesting you don't stare at it too long, because if you do, you'll actually go somewhere.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
All set. Okay, let's go.
No.
Let's go.
History have stressed the importance of training the mind. The mind is a tool. It's not real. It's magic with a C is Harry in your pocket. It's sleight of hand. Magic with a K is sleight of mind, where you use your belief system as a tool to complete your purpose. And your intent is how you do it. You
Okay.
know, the difference between ethics and moral. The idea. Yeah. Mine, like today, is to always leave you better than I found you. Given the okay, give me that again. I'll read it some more because I'm interested in these questions. I just wished I could do better in understanding what I do and don't understand. I'm as good as it gets, and I know I'm lost. You know, I'm trying to figure out. I've been classically trained by some of the best scientists in the world, and here I am at the end of days. I'm a 4-year-old that never became 7, and I'm stuck in this old man's body. And, well, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. You got it.
I hear you. I get it. You have a very challenging situation.
You really want to do the right thing, but that isn't necessarily the correct thing for someone else. That's why we shouldn't make judgment. You know, everybody is so uniquely different in the choices and options. I think that's why they say in the biblical form, we were God's favored for choice. The idea that we're all individually so unique. Most people don't have a clue. They spend their whole life trying to discover who they are, where I knew out of the crib I had self-realization. God realization, unfortunately, is going to require a captain, a helicopter, and going straight up that I don't think we have the technology to get to yet. You know,
geniuses like you, like Elon.
I'm not a genius. I'm just gifted in certain areas, but I'm limited, just like everybody else.
Everybody has their limitations, most certainly. But I know folks like you that I've met are very, very impressive and interesting, but yet face many challenges. And when you're as attuned as you are to different intellectual.
Well, you're kind of grumpy. I'm getting grumpy now.
Grumpy, oh my God. But it's also like having a storm in your mind, isn't it? I mean, your mind is going and going and going.
Yes, and what I need to do is somehow take control of it so that I can use it more effectively, because your belief systems are arbitrary and you should use them to accomplish your purpose.
Yes.
And your purpose is different for each of us.
Well, it is. And I think we all have our challenges with our own minds, you know, to silence that monkey mind, to silence the stupid, useless thoughts that are running through all the time. Now, how much of that we struggle with, these useless thoughts, are some type of brainwashing or some type of frequency that you mentioned earlier that's turned way down?
You mean neurolinguistics? That was one of the tools I did. You know, you can read people, because that's why your saints always like darshan, eyeball to eyeball rather than virtual. Mm-hmm. Typing and texting, who knows what's going on there? That's, you know, you don't have the essence of body language. One of the questions one of the kids asked that answers this question of yours, he said, if pigs are so smart, how come parrots can talk and pigs can't?
Interesting question.
Yeah, well, my comment back to him is that bird brain, you know, and parroting, as opposed to a body language. When a pig wants its way, you sure know what it wants to do, don't you? The kid got it real quick, because there's odoriferous molecules, there's body language, there's all kinds of other things going on besides texting and typing. Right. And you'll notice that when people are texting and typing and they're right next to each other, they're oblivious to
they are. Yes.
That's your mind control right out of the gate. You're gone. You're somewhere else, and you're not present. And that's the concept of why the purpose of meditation, where you let the mind go blank and you let the mind decide where it wants to go, and then you observe it from something else. That's called Sachkan. In any case, I know that I don't know. I started meditating when I was 1975, I think it was. I was initiated by Sharan Singh. He was a prime minister of India, and at that time. And I went to Beas up in northern part of India on my way through to Tibet, because I did studies in Tibet. Did you know that the Tibetan monks have these technologies we don't even use? They have these long horns they blow to communicate across distances. And if you put 17 of them in a specific geometric alignment and you compress, what it does, it so compresses the air that large objects float, and you can push them with a finger. Where's that technology? And that I documented that that was one of the things I did, and that was in 76 or 7.
I have another question for you from Verax, and he says, Dr. Miller, if you had the chance to share one truth, warning, or insight with every person on the planet, something you feel humanity urgently needs to hear, what would it be and why?
If you can grow 40% of the food you consume, you will survive this next 5 years.
Say that again.
If you can produce for yourself 40% of the food you consume, you have a high likelihood of survival in the next 5 years.
Okay.
I did this for Chattanooga. Michael Moore brought me in, and I did 3 weeks of workshops, seminars, going to parties, the upper crust. And today, every single restaurant on the Chattanooga River has a greenhouse. Their logo is right here, right now. That means they produce 40% of the food they consume, just like Vancouver, British Columbia. The Sikhs surrounded the city, and they grow all the food for that city. Whereas you and I have so-called just-in-time delivery of less than 3 days before the food has to be brought in. And if we have any kind of grid-down situation, you can count on not having food for a while. And Matt Stein and I used to say 3 minutes for air, 3 days for water, and 3 weeks for food. Heed those warnings. That's what you need. You need to have your water and your food. The air is something you can't depend on, although I'm watching this movie from Argentina where it snows and the snow is toxic and you can't go out and they don't have any water and food. And it's a new movie. I forget what it's called. I'm watching it right now.
You have a lot. I mean, you have a very high security clearance. So you have.
I did.
You did.
I'm now at GS-18, which means I don't report to anybody above me.
Good. Now,
President Carter was only at GS-10 as the highest rank in presidents. There were 3 of me in history, and I'm the only one still alive.
Well, let's ask you this then. What's with all this poisoning of our food, our water, climate?
Some of that real.
Skies. It's coming from somewhere in the government, yes? Or is that something else entirely? Who's doing this to us? This is awful. Say that again. There's what?
It's easier to control a smaller group of people than a larger group of people.
Mm-hmm.
There are too many people in the world.
So that's what they're trying to do is
who are they?
A bunch of us. Yeah, who are they?
Yeah, exactly. See, I can say, it's our government. But it isn't CIA. It's the individual cells within CIA that have no accountability or due diligence. They can do what they want to do, and that's a perfect place for a criminal.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Well, then there it is. That's how it works. The government's so big that it isn't the government per se, although I don't think we've had a true statesman in our capital since Harry Truman.
Mm-hmm.
Well, happy birthday, Mr. President. I mean, you remember all of that? I do. And it's so what I'm doing is I'm going off grid. I'm a survivalist. That's what IQ is. Adaptability, how quickly I can adapt. EQ, your worshipness, is real intelligence. That's what I know.
Remember something when you were on
what I experienced.
When you were on the show a number of years ago and you were talking about agriculture, you made a very important point about where to place your garden. And you said you should place it close to where you're living. It's like, don't put it far away, keep it close to you. It stuck with me all these years. I thought, you don't think about that. But
there's also other parts of that, a zombie is going to be a person out of food. And the entire West Coast, from Maine all the way down, is one gigantic 15-minute city. When I went up to Chihuahua a few weeks ago, Spokane, I did my undergraduate work at Pullman, Wazoo, and I watched Spokane. I saw a black gang running through a neighborhood with automatic weapons on their back. I saw that.
Wow.
That's a 15-minute city. When they don't have any food, what do you think looting's going to happen?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and that is exactly what a zombie is about.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you protect yourself from that?
Right.
And each region is different for its native plants. That's why I've written books on native plants. That's why I've written books on farming and agriculture, because you see, barter, if you can do 40% of the food you consume, the rest of it you can barter for things you want. Not things necessarily you need, but things you want. And blood types, pay attention, because O negative, for example, can't synthesize certain enzymes. They have to eat meat. Whether it's like ovo or whatever, they still need to consume certain kinds of foods that blood type doesn't. And it goes downhill from there. And each environment has its own biosphere. That would be the word, where you can adapt to eating more of this kind of thing because it's more rainy here, that kind of thing. Where do you want to live?
Right.
Better start thinking about that now.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And I can tell you that the aliens that we're seeing more and more of, those are our future, as I understand it, observing how the whole thing goes down in our dream.
Yes, very interesting.
I mean, there it is.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that, like the Seventh-day Adventists and some of the other religious cults, they state, there'll be some survivors. There have been, but Homo neanderthalis didn't survive. Where did it go? We find only 17% of its gene factors in African blood. What happened to that entity if it was more evolved than man? Well, that's kind of like a hydrangea, where you don't want the red hydrangea, you want the blue one. They're like doing selective harvesting or some. I don't know how to look at this whole thing, other than humans, Homo sapien, is not that evolved in comparison to what Gaia is. The largest life form on Earth is in the Blue Mountains of Oregon, is an agaricus mushroom. The third largest is another mushroom up in British Columbia. And the second largest life form is down in Telluride, is an aspen grove. What is that? Their digestive system and her brain?
Interesting.
A metaphor?
Yeah.
I don't know. Mycorrhiza is the hierarchy of life forms that make soil alive rather than it being dead. Dead soil has no living things in it, where you might have thrip, nematode, red spider, and a hierarchy of mycorrhiza. And mushrooms, the mycorrhiza, mycelium, in my communication, one of the studies I did that's really important is that mycelium acts in a virgin forest up in British Columbia, very much like a solid state crystal works in what we call event horizons, precursor waves, and what happens is when a forest fire starts at one end of the forest, the entire forest instantly knows that faster than light. How does that work?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Infraction, precursor waves, and where the crystal starts to have a crack or a EK-centered luminescence or something happening, or the thing, and the entire crystal knows that. So does a forest. Does that mean a forest is a metaphor for a crystal? Well, no, I don't know, but I can tell you that virgin forests, like our so-called mother plant, mother tree, the oldest tree, has all this mycelium, and I think it's the mycelium acting as a network, and I think that might be, as a metaphor, the consciousness part of Earth.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I have another question for you, Dr. Miller. I know we're winding down here, but
The soul has the heliosphere, and the solar system has the Oort cloud, which means maybe the whole thing is alive.
yeah, I think it is.
Well,
Here's another question for you from Verax. Dr. Miller, given your research into metaphysics, timelines, and global systems, do you believe we're approaching another Earth reset?
yes.
Whether physical, spiritual, or society? And if so, what are
Yes, all of the above. It's more than physical, it's emotional. Because when they talk about a magnetic pole shift, all the planets have shifted, including the sun last year, except Earth and Mercury. And Earth almost did it 2 years ago when the course stopped twice. Now, you can count on it, but I don't think it's a magnetic pole shift. I think that's just the limitation of the way we grok physics in terms of it, because one of the studies I did early on with Schleicher was that I flew over the Oregon vortex with a PBY at 15,000 feet with an interferometer. Now, what bends light at 15,000 feet? At 15,000 feet, yeah. Mini black hole. And I'm going to suggest there is a series of many black holes, what we call the ley lines, and the Bermuda Triangle, and some of the other anomalies, that is a form of specific sacred geometry going into the out of, where there's a reversal. And that was Alan Dean Foster that wrote that book called Into the Out of. And he wrote Outland and Star Wars and a couple of others. He lived down here in Ashland. But I'm going to suggest that there's something way more going on here that I don't quite get, that I'm trying to, wrap my head around and how it might all work. Because for me, I've got miles to go before I want to sleep.
Yeah.
Well, I got 147 further manuscripts, like the children's things, that I have yet to complete. And look at what I've written already on my website.
I know, it's exhausting just reading the list. Yes. So you do see some type of reset happening. So
I do. And I'm afraid it's, not something we'll even really understand when Woody Harrelson stands in front of Yellowstone. He says, "Bring it on!"
Yeah.
and the next picture, I'm turning into dust.
One other question I have for you is, there's been a lot of hype about the Pentagon is saying this, they're going to release all this information. And then we're told by people in the know like you that that's never going to happen. They're not going to tell us. So what do you...
I'm going to put it accurately. Anything you can imagine is possibly true is not only true, it's even more than that. You can count on it because it's the mind's eye. Imagination is what makes something real, not my physics. That means you need to control your thoughts on what you think is happening.
Okay.
Get me?
Yep.
Okay, good. We're on the same page. That's chapter 8. Chapter 6 is called synchronicity, where nothing happens by chance.
Right.
Well, then there it is.
Okay. So,
Baracha, honey. That's the great race.
yeah, I mean, I think if anything's going to come of this extraterrestrial, interdimensional connection, it's going to come through the people, because the people in power love to weaponize everything.
Well, they don't have any say in it. That's, again, there are 4 enemies of man, according to Castaneda. There was fear, power. Then you started to see things more clearly. That became an enemy. And the 4th enemy was old age. Too old to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Well, metaphor,
Represent that.
I don't think there's been anybody since Castaneda that has produced such a fascinating collection. And I know you were a part of that, too.
Yeah, but that's a long time ago. I helped ghostwrite that last one when he was having a meltdown. There were a couple of us that ghostwrote that. But, it's true. The imagination is what makes our children so valuable. And the question I would say is, why would we want to send them to school to become us?
That
Well,
is a great
How true, how true. Oh my goodness.
It's, I know, I don't know. I was gifted, and I'm grateful because my parents protected me in that regard. They wouldn't let them give me Ritalin. They wouldn't let them advance me in school. I am semi-normal, although when I'm not around, I hum and I nod my head. I'm a
Right.
dyslexic, but I've learned how to be adapted into the thing.
Mhm.
And I have learned that how you feel about something is the next level of intelligence. It has way more content than information itself. Information, there's a theorem in information theory that goes like this. If you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it.
Oh, okay.
That means information is quantized in the way you structure the question.
Mhm.
It means you can't get there from here, and it's another construct. It isn't real.
Right. Right. So you have about how many manuscripts you're working on, did you say?
I have another 147 manuscripts. Electromagic will be the one I do where you bypass the use of drugs, and I broke a code using Mora and Endomet German acupuncture equipment on the forehead. Was able to release any high I wanted. Now I can do it by envisioning specific geometry. I can go
Will
anywhere.
that open your pineal gland?
What's that, Mom?
Will that open the pineal gland?
The pineal gland. The pineal gland's been calcified. It has a signal that either goes up or down the spine. That thing that I just did with my mind's eye. That is in the visible light band. It's a series of cilia that send a light signal up or down. Shri or Bendo, Gopai Krishna.
Do you have something that will stimulate that?
Yes, by your mind's eye. Yes, Miss Ma'am. And you can begin, if you do it correctly, you can start to decalcify the third eye, but it hasn't been used in so many generations. What do you think the third eye is about? Dimethyltryptamine. Because when you get it out of crabgrass, that's 5-alpha dimethyltryptamine. I did that study at the University of Washington in anesthesiology. And 5-alpha is a toxin, but it's very similar to, but different than N, N hyphen dimethyltryptamine, which Rick Strassman took my work and then went further with it. The thing that is that I think that crabgrass was a delivery system from God.
Really?
Because when you take crabgrass, what it does is it releases the true neurotransmitter, and that's how you decalcify your third eye. Not by smoking 5-alpha and a glass of pipe.
It's time to stop poisoning our crabgrass and start eating it.
Well, there's all kinds of ways you can do there. You can hit yourself over the head too, and have a white light hit.
I don't like that one.
Well,
I'd rather eat crabgrass.
Yeah, I mean, lots of ways to get to Rome.
Yeah, well, we're so happy you were able to join us tonight, Richard. It's been a wonderful evening with you.
Definitely.
Yes, this is so much fun talking to you.
I'll send that little thing if you want to post that little geometry. It's a gift.
Yes, please.
I have a Stargate as well that's very similar but different. That's the one that's out there. The one I'm doing is the one that I use to go to Mars. And now they've discovered it on Saturn.
Oh.
And that's why the Saturn 1 project has become a priority. Get out of jail card.
I'd like to get out of the jail card. That would be a handy thing to have.
Oh, handy? Well, maybe not, because remember, orca chases dolphin as food chain.
I remember you saying that. Yes.
Well, delicious when served cold. Oh, that was revenge. Sorry.
Well, this has been a blast. We hope you've had as much fun as we have, because this has been a wonderful evening. And great questions from Varix and our audience tonight. It was so interesting to see what people wanted to know.
Well, I just wanted to open some doors so you start thinking about things, because
that's great.
It's about to happen, and it's going to be in your lifetime.
All right. Well, we are all buckled in and ready to go. So thank you.
That one, I'm not. Okay, well,
get your seatbelt on.
My keys.
Well, we will be back next week, everybody, with another great show. We've got PK's good buddy, Jeff Harmon, who's going to join us next week. And I can't wait to hear what Jeff has to say about what's coming. So make sure to join us. And until then, we will see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.